What happens when a royal guest walks onto one of television's hottest talk shows and decides the rules don't apply to him? In just 37 seconds, a single comment would turn a friendly interview into the most explosive moment in late-night history. Andy Cohen sat behind his desk that evening, ready to welcome one of the most talked-about figures in modern celebrity culture. Prince Harry had been making the rounds, promoting his latest projects and opening up about his life. The audience buzzed with excitement as the cameras rolled and the lights came up. Andy flashed his signature smile, that warm, inviting energy that made him one of the most beloved hosts on television. "Welcome, welcome," Andy said, extending his hand as Harry walked onto the set. The audience erupted in applause. Harry gave a small wave, settling into the guest chair with an air of casual confidence that immediately felt different from other guests. There was something in his posture, something in the way he glanced around the studio, like he was assessing whether it met his standards. Andy dove right in, keeping things light. "So great to have you here. I've been wanting to sit down with you for ages. How are you finding everything? The response to your recent work has been incredible." Harry nodded slowly, his expression neutral. "It's been fine, I suppose. Though I will say, the setup here is quite different from what I'm used to." Andy laughed it off, thinking it was just an awkward joke. "Well, we try to keep things fun and loose here. That's kind of our thing. But hey, speaking of your work, I wanted to ask about—" "I'm sorry. Can we pause for a moment?" Harry interrupted, holding up one hand. The audience fell silent, confused by the sudden shift in tone. "Is the temperature always this warm in here? I'm finding it rather uncomfortable." Andy blinked, thrown off but maintaining his composure. "Oh, we can definitely adjust that for you. Not a problem at all." He signaled to someone off camera. "There we go. They're on it. Now where were we?" "And another thing," Harry continued, not waiting for Andy to finish. "The chair. It's not quite right. Do you have something with better back support? I have very specific needs when it comes to seating." The audience shifted uncomfortably. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. Andy's smile tightened, just slightly, but he kept his professional demeanor intact. "You know what? We'll get that sorted out during the commercial break. But for now, let's talk about why you're here. Your fans are really excited to hear from you." Harry leaned back, draping one arm over the side of the chair in a way that seemed almost dismissive. "Right. Yes, my fans. Though I have to say, Andy, I'm surprised you didn't do more research on the topics I actually want to discuss. I sent over a very detailed list of approved questions." Andy's eyebrows raised. In all his years of hosting, he'd dealt with difficult guests before, but this was something else entirely. "Well, we did receive your list, and we definitely have those topics ready. But part of what makes this show special is the spontaneity, the real conversation. That's what viewers love." "Spontaneity," Harry repeated, his tone dripping with condescension. "Yes, well, spontaneity is all well and good when you're dealing with reality television personalities and pop stars. But when you're interviewing someone of my background, there needs to be a certain level of, shall we say, decorum." The energy in the room shifted dramatically. Andy's smile faded, replaced by something more serious. "I think we have plenty of decorum here. I've interviewed presidents, activists, award-winning actors, and yes, other members of royal families. Everyone gets the same respect on this show." "Other members of royal families," Harry said with a slight smirk. "You mean people who've appeared on morning shows and charity events? That's hardly the same caliber, is it?" Andy took a breath, clearly working to maintain his composure. The audience was dead silent now, sensing the tension building between host and guest. "I'm not sure what you're trying to say here, but maybe we should just move forward with the interview. Why don't you tell everyone about your latest project?" Harry waved his hand dismissively. "In a moment. First, I think we need to address something. Your producer, the one who coordinated this appearance, was incredibly difficult to work with. Unresponsive, unprofessional. I had to have my team reach out multiple times just to get basic information. Andy's jaw tightened. My team is one of the hardest working groups in television. They bend over backwards for every guest who comes through here. If there was a communication issue, I'm sorry. But I can assure you, they did everything possible to accommodate you. Accommodate me, Harry repeated, shaking his head. See? That's the issue right there. This shouldn't be about accommodation. When someone of my stature agrees to appear on a program, the program should feel privileged. There should be an understanding of what that means. The audience gasped. A few people whispered to each other, shocked at what they were hearing. Andy leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, his expression no longer friendly, but focused and firm. Let me be very clear about something. Every single person who sits in that chair is important. I don't care if you're promoting a small independent film or if you're, well, you. Everyone deserves respect, and everyone gives respect. That's how this works. Harry laughed, actually laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the tension. That's adorable, Andy. Really, this whole egalitarian approach you have. But let's be realistic. You and I both know that I'm the reason your ratings will spike this week. People tuned in to see me, not to watch you ask your quirky little questions. The room erupted. The audience couldn't hold back their reactions anymore. Some people booed. Others sat in stunned silence. Andy stood up from behind his desk, something he rarely did in the middle of an interview. His face was flushed, his composure cracking, just enough to show genuine anger beneath the surface. Okay, we're done here, Andy said, his voice calm but deadly serious. I've given you every opportunity to have a real conversation. I've been patient with your complaints about the temperature, the chair, my team, the format of the show. But I will not sit here and let you disrespect the people who work incredibly hard to make this show happen every single night. Harry remained seated, that smirk still on his face. Oh, come now. Don't be so sensitive. I'm simply stating facts. You should be thanking me for even showing up. Thanking you? Andy's voice rose slightly, the first time he'd let his emotions fully show. Let me tell you something about this show. We've had incredible guests. People who've changed the world. People who've inspired millions. People who've overcome impossible odds. And every single one of them sat in that chair with humility and grace. You know what they didn't do? They didn't walk in here acting like the world owed them something. Harry finally stood up, his own expression darkening. How dare you speak to me that way? Do you have any idea who I am? What I've been through? I know exactly who you are, Andy shot back. And you know what? Your title doesn't give you the right to treat people like they're beneath you. This isn't about your background or your family or whatever you think makes you special. This is about basic human decency, something you seem to have forgotten. The audience began to applaud, softly at first, then building into genuine support for Andy. Harry looked around, seeming to realize for the first time that the room was not on his side. His face reddened, his jaw clenched. This is absurd, Harry said, his voice tight. I came here as a courtesy, and this is how I'm treated? With hostility and disrespect? Andy crossed his arms. You're the one who came in here making demands, insulting my staff, and acting like this show should bow down to you. I've been nothing but professional. I've tried to give you every chance to turn this around and have a real conversation. But clearly, that's not what you're interested in. Harry pointed a finger at Andy, his composure completely gone now. You're just like all the rest of them. The media vultures who think they can pick apart anyone they want, who think they have the right to judge people they know nothing about. You sit here in your comfortable studio, asking invasive questions, stirring up drama for ratings. And then you have the audacity to lecture me about decency? I ask real questions, Andy replied, his voice steady now, controlled. Questions that matter to people. Questions that help audiences understand the world and the people in it. What I don't do is let guests come on here and act like tyrants. I don't care who you are. That behavior doesn't fly here. Tyrant? Harry's voice cracked with indignation. You're calling me a tyrant? That's rich coming from someone who makes a living exploiting people's personal lives for entertainment. Andy shook his head, a sad smile crossing his face. You really don't get it, do you? This could have been a great interview. You could have connected with millions of people who genuinely care about your work, your causes, your story. But instead, you walked in here with this attitude, this entitlement, and you've thrown it all away. For what? To prove some point about how important you think you are? The words hung in the air. Harry stood there, his chest heaving, his face flushed with anger and something else. Maybe embarrassment. The audience watched in rapt silence, every eye moving between the host and the guest like they were watching a championship match. I don't have to stand here and listen to this, Harry finally said, his voice low and dangerous. I don't have to justify myself to you or anyone else in this room. You're right, Andy said simply. You don't. In fact, I think it's time for you to go. The audience gasped again. In all the years Andy had been hosting, he'd never kicked a guest off the show. There had been difficult moments, tense exchanges, but nothing like this. Nothing where he'd actually told someone to leave. Harry's eyes widened. Excuse me? You heard me, Andy said, his voice firm and clear. This interview is over. I'm not going to waste any more of my audience's time, my staff's time, or my own time on someone who can't show basic respect. You can go. Harry looked around wildly, as if expecting someone to intervene, to tell Andy he couldn't do this. But the crew stood silent. The audience sat frozen. No one moved to help him. You can't do this, Harry said, but his voice wavered. You can't just kick me off your show. Actually, I can, Andy replied. It's my show, and I decide who gets to sit in that chair. Right now, you've proven you don't deserve to be here. So please leave. Harry's mouth opened and closed, searching for words that wouldn't come. His face cycled through emotions. Shock, anger, humiliation. Finally, he grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair, his movements jerky and aggressive. This is outrageous, he muttered, loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Absolutely outrageous. You'll regret this, Andy. You and this whole production will regret treating me this way. Andy didn't respond. He simply stood there, arms still crossed, watching as Harry stormed toward the exit. The prince moved quickly, his footsteps echoing in the silent studio. Someone off camera opened a door, and Harry disappeared through it without looking back. For a long moment, nobody moved. The audience sat in complete silence, processing what they'd just witnessed. Andy remained standing, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, someone in the audience began to clap. Another person joined in. Then another. Within seconds, the entire studio was on its feet, applauding thunderously. Andy held up his hands, trying to quiet them down, but the ovation continued. There were cheers, whistles, even a few shouts of support. He finally managed a small smile, shaking his head in disbelief at what had just happened. Well, he said, once the noise died down enough for him to be heard. That was certainly something. The audience laughed, the tension breaking like a dam bursting. You know, in all my years doing this show, I've never had to do that before. I've never wanted to do that. But there are lines, you know? Lines that you just don't cross. He walked back to his desk, sitting down heavily in his chair. I want to be clear about something. This show has always been about having real conversations. Sometimes those conversations are fun and silly. Sometimes they're deep and meaningful. Sometimes, apparently, they're train wrecks. More laughter from the audience. But the one thing that's always been true is that we treat people with respect. All people. And we expect that same respect in return. The audience applauded again, shorter this time, but just as heartfelt. Andy glanced at the camera, speaking directly to the viewers at home. I know some of you tuned in specifically to see that interview, and I'm sorry it didn't turn out the way anyone expected. But I hope you understand why I made the choice I did. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gets to come into this space and treat the people I work with, the people who make this show possible, like they're worthless. That's not who we are. That's not what this show is about. He paused, collecting his thoughts. You know what the funny thing is? I was actually excited for this interview. I thought it would be a chance to get beyond the headlines, beyond all the noise, and have a real conversation. But you can't have a real conversation with someone who thinks they're above it all. Someone who sees everyone around them as servants instead of equals. The camera stayed tight on Andy's face as he spoke. I've been lucky enough to interview some incredible people over the years. People who've been through unimaginable things. People who have every reason to be jaded or bitter or demanding. And you know what? The best ones, the ones who really shine, are the ones who remain humble, who remember that we're all just people trying to do our best. That's what makes someone truly remarkable. Not their title, not their fame, not their family name. Their character. He took a breath, letting that sink in. So yeah, tonight didn't go as planned. But in a weird way, I think it was important. Because it's a reminder that respect isn't something you're born with, or something you inherit. It's something you earn, every single day, through how you treat others. And if you can't do that, if you can't show basic kindness and decency to the people around you, then all the titles in the world don't mean anything. The audience sat quietly now, hanging on every word. Andy's authenticity, his genuine emotion, had transformed the moment from scandalous entertainment into something more meaningful. All right, Andy said, clapping his hands together and forcing a brighter tone. We've still got a show to do. And I've got another guest waiting backstage who, I promise you, is going to be absolutely delightful. Someone who knows how to have a real conversation without making it all about themselves. He grinned at the camera. We'll be right back after this break. Don't go anywhere. The lights dimmed slightly as they cut to commercial, but even as the cameras stopped rolling, the audience continued buzzing with excitement and shock. People turned to each other, rehashing what they'd seen, unable to believe they'd witnessed television history in the making. Andy sat at his desk, running his hands through his hair, clearly still processing the adrenaline of the confrontation. A producer rushed over, whispering something to him. He nodded, managing a tired smile. Whatever happened next, whatever fallout would come from this moment, one thing was absolutely certain. Nobody in that studio would ever forget the night Andy Cohen stood his ground and showed the world that respect matters more than royalty. That dignity isn't about where you come from, but how you treat others. And that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to accept unacceptable behavior, no matter who it's coming from. The commercial break ended. Andy straightened his notes, took a sip of water, and looked back at the camera with renewed energy. Welcome back, he said warmly. Now, let's talk to someone who actually wants to be here. And just like that, the show went on. Because that's what professionals do. They handle the chaos with grace. They stand up for what's right, and they keep moving forward. The empty chair where Harry had sat just minutes before served as a silent reminder of what happens when ego overtakes empathy, when entitlement replaces gratitude. The studio audience, still riding the high of what they'd witnessed, gave Andy another round of applause as he introduced his next guest. They'd come expecting a typical celebrity interview. Instead, they'd gotten a masterclass in integrity, a demonstration of what it means to hold the line when someone tries to cross it. And somewhere, beyond the studio walls, in living rooms and bars and offices across the world, people would soon be talking about this moment, sharing clips, debating the exchange, discussing what it all meant. But in that studio, in that exact moment, there was only the simple truth that Andy had spoken. Character matters. Respect matters. And no title or status in the world can excuse treating others as less than human. It was a lesson delivered not through careful planning or scripted moments, but through raw, unfiltered reality. The kind of reality that makes for unforgettable television.